everything like misunan, or we're okay?
No.
Okay.
And then we already started. So that's a great way to start it. No filters.
Okay,
Authentic
no
people.
filters.
Getting into the flow. Being present.
It's what I know.
Maya, what's
Yes.
up? How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
Feeling super balanced and happy and calm.
Balanced and happy and calm.
Yeah,
That's quite an
yeah.
achievement to get all those three
Yeah,
at the same
especially
time.
in today's day and,
Yeah.
today's times.
Crazy times.
Yes.
It's crazy times, and I think this is the right time to do this kind of shows, especially when so many people are, going through a lot, both, professionally and personally. And I kind of find it, difficult to remove the mental aspects from your professional life and obviously from your personal life. And this kind of like new age vibes, people are talking more about meditation, yoga, and it's starting to become very mainstream.
I'm seeing that so much. I've been sorry.
No, I mean, what's fascinating is that when I read about you a little bit, I stalked you a little bit.
Creepy,
cringe, and you started pretty late with all those kind of stuff, no?
Yeah.
Relatively late. You're still
Yeah.
young, obviously.
I mean, I look young. I'm 46.
You definitely look young.
I've biohacked the aging process. I actually
Really?
literally biohacked the aging process. I mean, do I look 46?
No,
Not
you
really.
look. No, you don't.
I don't,
But I think
no.
it's your dark skin is a
It's
plus.
because my dark skin. So all
It's
dark
genetics.
skinned people are young looking. So what was the question?
how did you get started? Because you started in relatively
Right. Well, I was working in the fashion industry for many years. I'm from New York, and probably from age like 21, very material world. I was an agent to models, and then I was an agent to photographers, and then I had a production company. I was doing photo shoots for Victoria's Secret, Vogue, Saks Fifth Avenue. It was like this very glamorous life and supposed to be very filling and fulfilling, and I felt very empty. That's kind of where the search started. I would say since I'm very little, I was always very aware, but I kind of shut that down to fit in, right? Because it's weird that I would be like hugging trees when I'm like 9 years old, so it wasn't really acceptable. So I kind of just put that on the side. But then it creeped up on me, and in my 20s, I was very successful. I was living a full life, New York City, and I just didn't feel full. I didn't feel connected to myself. Some people live that way their whole life. For me, it just wasn't possible. I wanted more. I knew there was more. So I started this self-searching and made very interesting choices in relationships that took me to even a faster self-search because I was triggered more, had to do more self-work. I was kind of pushed there. And then I just picked up and left and moved to Israel, just like that. And I just needed to change locations, change my life. And I didn't have any sort of plan. It was an instinctual thing. And here I was working in Israel. I was working as a stylist and in the fashion world. And still I was kind of like, this isn't it. And life took me to study to be a yoga teacher. I was practicing yoga for years. It was just kind of like there was a woman coming here from the States, and she was an amazing teacher. And I went to do her class, and through yoga, it was like kind of like the beginning of it. It's like I felt, okay, here I am, a yoga teacher. Now what? I'm not going to teach in studios. I want to do more self-work. I want to figure out like what's going on with what's going on inside me. Like who's the real Maya? I want to live a life without suffering. I want to live a life without stress or anxiety, which I had for many, many years of my life. And I want to live a life where I'm free. I feel free and not caged up by what's around me. And that's when my journey started. And you mentioned all these things becoming trendy. When I started, yoga was like very spiritual. You know, people were like, oh, you're a yoga teacher, which is so funny because I've seen it evolve to like be like, yeah, it's like going for a run, for like a jog. Everyone does yoga. Everyone has a yoga mat. Same with retreats. The word retreat, people didn't even know what that was. It was like a new age word. And now it's so mainstream. Or wellness. I used to have to explain to people what wellness means. They didn't know that word. And now you're seeing it everywhere. So I have seen it evolve as I evolved. After I became a yoga teacher, I wanted to learn more. So I did more self-work, and I became a meditation guide, aromatherapist, an alchemist, which was probably the biggest turning point. You know what an alchemist is?
I read the book.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that. So in science...
You create stuff.
Right. So what I do is I create, I guess you can call it decoding your cellular memory from one situation to another.
It's like removing past traumas and this kind of stuff?
Yes, through the subconscious. I do that through therapy, one-on-one, where we go into the subconscious mind and we see what's sitting deep inside. And I also tell all my clients and all my patients that they're doing the work because it's just me that's holding the space for it. You know, we all have the power to heal ourselves. We all have the power to find the quiet within and the balance. You can't search for it on the outside. The outside stuff helps, right? A massage helps. Going to the beach and sitting in front of the ocean helps. But when we go inside, like really inside, and remove it, we don't need tools to deal with it because we take it out. Okay, that's the deep work. That's like deep awareness. But there are different other levels of awareness. And that's kind of what I went through the yoga, physical awareness, our body, right? You have pain, trauma comes up as physical pain, or in other words, physical pain has emotional trauma underneath it, always, right? They come hand in hand. I haven't made this up. They've done a lot of studies on this.
And it could be both psychology, like it could be like physical pain, and it could be like emotional pain as well.
Yes, or psychological, right?
Right.
So that's the physical awareness. So being like knowing your body, feeling the pain. Like people don't know that they have pain until they move the body. Like sometimes in yoga, they're like, oh, like my neck. But they forgot that that's there. Like they didn't even notice. And what happens is when we don't see it or we don't pay attention to it, it builds up. And then, God forbid, it's disease. What is disease? Dis-ease, right? That's what it is. It's dis-ease in our body. So if we ignore it, it's going to grow. But if we feel it, we can move through it. So that's physical awareness. Very important. The next level is aware of our thoughts, mindfulness, which I'm sure you've heard of.
No.
Everyone's heard. Right. But maybe 10 years ago, no, right? So it's
it wasn't such a thing. It was more of a beatnik 70s kind of thing, right? Like it's Eastern, like it wasn't philosophized into Western tradition. No.
And it's funny. I always say like the hippies are the ones starting all the trends, because what was considered like really new agey, like spiritual, all the hippies were doing it years ago, right? So mindfulness, being aware of our thoughts. When we're aware of our thoughts, they don't control us. You can choose something else because you're thinking it as you're thinking it.
Right.
Right. So that's being aware of our thoughts. So that's like another level of awareness. The third level of awareness is our emotions. Being aware that you're feeling something when you're feeling it. So what does that mean? So you're angry, which is fine. People get angry. But when we're not aware of our anger, it either like builds up into rage or we hold on to it, right? It stays there. When you're aware that you're angry, almost like when you're aware of the thoughts, the anger doesn't take over you. So you're like, okay, I'm angry now. Okay. Like, you're angry. So you can kind of dim it down a bit or understand where that anger is coming from because you're kind of looking at it from the outside. Okay. So that's being aware of your emotions, which is a very high level of awareness because nothing takes over you. You're able to feel things, but it's not like you get pulled into the drama of it. You don't swim in your sadness and it becomes depression, right? You're sad. You know you're sad. You let it move through you.
Like a cloud.
Yes, exactly. And the next level of awareness, which is what I was talking about with the alchemy, is your soul awareness. Like, what are the things that are sitting deep down inside that keep repeating themselves in your life and you cannot put a finger on it, right? Like things that come from limiting beliefs from your childhood, where we kind of just pushed it down under. So sometimes we have to go to the subconscious to see it, right? You can go to a psychologist and talk about it for many years. I believe that also helps. But I like to go deep to the root.
So is that like psychedelics or stuff like that?
No.
Is it like herbal? Like what are the ingredients you play with?
I work with energies and spirits. No, I mean, there is a formula to it. But I don't believe that we need to put anything inside our body because we have the ability to get there on our own. I've had clients be like, oh my God, this was like taking mushrooms. Like I'm able to go there without the substance.
Right.
Right. Which is super cool because you have access to it whenever you want and you don't have to put anything in your body. I mean, I work with oils and things like that, but that's different. So that's the deep soul awareness. So when you're aware of all those things all the time, you don't suffer. I live a life today where I don't suffer. I don't have stress. It doesn't mean that things don't happen around me.
Right.
I don't soak it. And the only time I do have stress is when I need it, like the adrenaline, right? So if you're in survival mode, yeah, your body goes into stress. I start running, right? That sort of stress.
Right.
But that's natural. Most people, I would say 99.9% of people, live their life in that stress mode, in that survival mode day to day from things that aren't necessarily putting them in survival mode. Why? Because they're basing it on their past experiences and they're thinking about the future.
Right.
Right. They're creating stories instead of just being here, present.
This is crazy. Wow. So listen, I want to start off with when you were in New York and you were like living this lifestyle, and you said you didn't feel fulfilled at that point. Was that in hindsight looking back at that period of your life? Or when you were there, did you notice you're not as fulfilled as you wanted to be?
I would say when I graduated college and started working, I remember I went to a psychologist. I think I was like 18 or 19. And it was like the first time I went to a psychologist. And I said to her, like, I work in an office, I was working and I would take breaks to go in the bathroom because I would have panic attacks.
Right.
I thought life was that. And I remember her telling me, you don't need to work in an office. There are other options. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even think about that. Right. So then I started realizing, so I was always feeling, to answer your question, I was always feeling some sort of like misalignment with where I was. And then I reached a job where I was a producer and traveling and it was fun. Like, oh, Maya, here you got what you wanted. Like you're meeting people and it's interesting and it's creative and you're staying in the best hotels in the world and you're traveling to islands. Like, wow, this is fun. And it was. But then I realized that's an even deeper level that I wasn't getting fulfilled. I did feel empty. I felt empty to my environment. I felt empty to the people that I was with. And I was really good at what I was doing. Like I was good at my job and I was getting a lot of praise for it, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. There was something missing.
And was that thing, the thing that was missing, was that you being an active teacher of meditation yoga, or was that because you were not engaged spiritually with yourself?
I mean, I wasn't even exposed to that world. I mean, I was just doing yoga then. And I think it was more, I was always a person that was very sensitive, feeling others, feeling myself. There's a lot of people like that. We kind of desensitize ourselves. And I think most people can be very sensitive. But I was really in touch with it. And I guess a lot of people will settle because I was happy-ish, I want more. I don't want to just be like, next to life. We live this life, I believe in many lives. We live this life one time. I want to be whole. Like, I want to feel whole. I want to really I want it to feel like I feel now, actually. I'm saying I want to, but I'm there. Like, I wake up every morning and I'm like, like I feel whole, feel full. I don't need anything from outside to fill me. And that's a result of those moments where I felt empty and started the search of how to feel fulfilled, because I realized that I was even in my dream job, but I didn't feel full. So I was still having anxiety.
You were talking about not feeling suffering, right? And it's quite interesting because when you look at a lot of Eastern traditions and the philosophies that come from Eastern traditions, when you talk to those people, like I'm talking to you, there is this element of I live a stress-free, anxiety-free, suffering-free environment, or I use stress when needed, but I can kind of control the way I feel. But it's funny because lots of those traditions came from the understanding that life is suffering. We talk about Buddha, we talk about the Taoists, we talk about all those Eastern traditions. And I find it quite fascinating because, so if life is suffering and we're able to detach ourselves from that suffering, then what is life? Because you're not suffering, because you're not feeling that thing. You're medicating yourself. It could be, not with specific medications, while that helps a lot of people as well. But, it could be mantras or certain habits or certain routines or certain belief systems or herbals and so forth. But you kind of disconnect from that suffering. So what is that? Why is life suffering?
Well, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What is suffering to you? What is suffering?
To me? That's a deep question. I think that suffering for me is not being at ease with the present. I think that is what is to me. I think suffering for me is not being vital. So I personally prioritize vitalness over anything else. I prioritize being vital over being happy. I prioritize being vital over, being, confident, right? Like, vitality for me is what drives me personally. I'm sure for everyone else, it's something different, right? But that's...
Okay, yeah. So the way I see suffering, it's not like I don't feel feelings.
Right.
Okay? I'm not like...
You're not a robot.
No, and I'm not like I'm angry. I need to put oils all over my body. I feel anger and I feel sad and I feel low and I feel... I let the feelings move through me completely. I'm not in denial. I'm very grounded with those things. When I say I don't suffer, I live a life without suffering, it means that I don't get sucked into the chaos of things. I don't get sucked into the drama. Okay? To get to where I am today has been a very difficult road, but I don't see that as suffering. I see that as lessons. I'm a very positive person. I've always been. I've always seen the bright side of things. I'm not in denial. I'm just positive. And I also have a lot of hope in me, in life. I live through hope. So even when there's actual suffering around me, people are suffering, right? There's a lot of evilness going on and things like that. I don't carry that on me. I choose to see the hope in things, that things will be better, right? So you can say I'm in denial, fine. But I think we all create our own movies. We all create our own lives and then it spreads. So being in suffering means that you're staying stuck in a place that is dramatic and chaotic and negative. To me, that's suffering. That's like, this is so hard. I don't say this is so hard. I'm growing now. Like, I'm going through a process. I want to expand. I want to learn. Right. So, yeah, it's not comfortable. It's like the ice baths, right? I've been doing ice baths for 3 years. And it's getting out of my comfort zone. So, am I suffering in the ice bath? No. And I'm in pain. It's not comfortable. I don't want to be there. But I'm not suffering, because if I would be suffering in the ice bath, I'd probably run right out, right? I wouldn't really grow from the process.
Right.
So I allow that pain to just be there so that I can grow, right? To go through me. So I think a suffering is being stuck. I also think in Buddhism, it's a very similar type thing, because when they speak of suffering, they don't mean go into the drama and the chaos of things. Right? Like, oh, this is so hard. Let's carry life on our shoulders. Suffering.
In anxiety, there is this kind of like second layer anxiety. And what I mean by that is, when an anxious person or someone who's prone to anxiety is starting to get anxiety from getting anxiety, right? There's like this feedback loop that keeps on growing through being exposed to anxiety, right? So, it starts, and you see this in lots of different kind of verticals and symptoms. It could be people with OCD, right? You can see how their OCD is slowly starting to get more and more things, and you start being OCD about more things. And anxiety, it's, crippling anxiety, you get to, the person who has crippling anxiety, he didn't wake up one day and couldn't live his, get out of his bed. It started out with small things. And I think mindfulness really kind of helps you kind of see that, and kind of like psychoanalyze yourself before you get to that point. And so I practice meditation daily. And I do like guided meditation. I don't do like TM or those kind of stuff, although I did hear certain things about those things, both positive and negative. I heard people who go crazy, from TM, and I heard people that, it's
interesting that you're talking about TM this way. I've always had this like inner thought about.
Really?
Yeah.
It's just, what is it?
Because you're the first person that's like speaking that, and I've always thought,
TM can be quite harsh, I think, because you're programming yourself through this mantra that this third party gave it you, right? For certain, and you're like getting programmed into this program. And what I've noticed is, first of all, I read a lot. So I did read a lot of people that TM had like negative effects on them.
Really?
Yeah. And I did read a lot more stuff that TM had positive effects, right? So like you need to see it, see the full equation of things. But I've never when I listen to myself, I never been drawn to TM specifically.
Yeah,
more into like physical, breath work and like guided meditation.
Yeah.
So I was and we'll talk about that. But so when I was doing the guided meditation thing, one of the YouTube videos that I watched, the person talked about meditating as a preventive, method, as a preventive tool. And it was like the first time I was like, you shouldn't only meditate if you have anxiety. You shouldn't go to therapy only if things are not working well. You need to constantly work on this machine, on this vehicle that is you, and fine tune it as you go along. Because the more you go, the more you progress in life, especially if you're ambitious, the more kind of obstacles or kind of like emotions come at you, because you're moving forward, and when you're moving forward, things come at you, and you need to learn how to handle those stuff.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that meditation, because a lot of people might be turned off of meditation, it's not like where you're just sitting on a mountaintop and there's nothing and you just sit there. I think that's what, when I was much younger, that's what I was kind of like, I don't know how to do that, like just sit and not think, and I don't want to put a timer and sit quietly. It's not my way. So I'm was also really into guided meditations. Today I do a lot of guided meditations, and I also got to a point, which is interesting because you're talking about like training, that I just don't have that noise anymore in general. So my meditation just comes from walking silently, or I always look at the trees and the sky wherever I go. Mindfulness, being present, because that brings us back. Nature. That's also a form of meditation. I see how like the trees are moving. I sound like I'm on psychedelics. Everyone always tells me that, but this is how I live my life. I see how the trees are just moving in the wind, and like the background, the contrast between the green and like the sunset or whatever. Like I notice all these things. I'm mindful of what I'm seeing. I'm mindful of what I'm eating. That's a form of meditation too.
Of course.
I'm mindful that I am walking right now. Okay, it's being present. I think that's the biggest secret to finding, your inner balance or your inner peace, is being present, which is so challenging for so many people. You're sitting in your office. There's so many different noises going around and people. You're sitting at home. It's the news. It's the kids. It's this. It's that. Like, how do you find the quiet in the chaos? Be present. So notice. I always say, look at nature. So you're in your office. And you're like, right, like, oh, just look at nature and see what happens. Like, look at nature, take an inhale and an exhale, and you'll see it's like, it will do wonders for you.
You know that what I love about mindfulness is that it's scientific based. Like the positive effects of mindfulness are scientific. And you see this even if like with the treatment of anxiety and depression and OCD, you see that the most famous like non prescription method was CBT. And now you see that it's that CBT, there's a third wave of CBT called ACT, which is ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy, which is basically CBT with mindfulness integrated with it. Amazing. And that's being practiced today on so many patients. So a lot of people who were kind of like a skeptic or non-spiritual beings who basically think, listen, I only trust the science. I only trust, what I see in front of me, not what's, hidden from me. Right now, they have this, mindfulness is vetted in a way. It's checklisted in a way for them to practice it and see the effects without you being attached to the spiritual aspects of meditation. And I think that is beautiful and wonderful. I wonder if youth, there is, however, something that I'm quite interested in is, even though like mindfulness, yoga, a therapy, so many different kind of aspects of getting better, of healing yourself, has become more and more mainstream. Also, lots of anxiety and depression and lots of mental health issues have also, it seems, to have become more of a pandemic. So is it because it wasn't talked about before and it was existed there, or is it that all those new age like mainstream mindfulness and yoga and those kind of stuff are not strong enough to combat different stress evoking things like the phones or different other things? What's your take?
You want like the spiritual aspect or the or the human aspect?
The spiritual.
What I want to say,
everything is spiritual.
Right.
I believe that everything is spiritual. That's my take.
So first of all, let's discuss, Corona.
Right.
Corona did a wonderful thing for humankind, for humanity. Why? It's almost like weeds, right? Weeds are deep, deep in the ground. And I'm gonna use this reference also to war and whatever's going on now, right? This madness that's going on in the world. Weeds are deep, deep in the ground, and now they're coming out, right? When they come out, you have to take care of it. So all that's going on in the world has bringing rise to all the anxiety and all the deep wounds where all these people would normally not treat it.
Right.
Right. So now they're like, help. Like
treat it. They wouldn't even be aware of it sometimes.
Right. Right. Exactly. And it's taking rise. So all of a sudden they're having anxiety. Right. The anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing. Right. Because when you have anxiety, you're like, oh my God, I need to take care of this before it becomes dis-ease. Right. So it takes rise and now we have to take care of it. So I've seen in my field wonderful things because people are knocking on my door and they're like, help people that would normally never come because of what's going on in the world. They're experiencing triggers not to just what's going on in the world. It's triggering something within them from their childhood. It's causing anxiety, and they're needing treatment, and the medicines aren't working. Right? So I think people are more open to it because now they're having more stress, more anxiety. And again, if those things were always sitting inside them. So it's good that it's taking rise. It's good that it's surfacing so that we can see it and treat it.
What type of anxiety did you have?
Oh my God,
you mentioned panic attacks. Was it like legit panic attacks?
Oh my God, my poor parents. Oh my God. I was like 16 or something. And that's when they started. And I would have like episodes where, my body was shaking and I would feel like I'm going to faint. And they would have
heart
to take me to the
attack
hospital.
stuff. Yeah.
They would have to take me to the hospital like so many times. I used to have anxiety like when I would drive on the highway, New York, and then you go somehow into New Jersey and you don't know where you are. And it was like the evening and I kept driving. I was having a panic attack as I'm in the car, which was a different kind of panic attack. I literally like created a story in my head that like I'm getting like chased or somebody's following me. Like, and that's an anxiety, right? That's anxiety. And I'm driving and it's nighttime and I'm freaking out and I don't have like my phone. I don't think we even had phones then. And I was like driving.
You're not that old.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know, 17, 18 at this point. And I ended up in some random New Jersey town. There was a diner open. I walk in, I'm like crying. And the woman's like, puts like a blanket on me. She's like, are you okay? I'm like, I need to call my dad. And I had to use the payphones. Yeah. And I called my dad to pick me up. He's like, where are you? I'm like, I don't know where. Like my poor parents. Yeah. This is anxiety.
Right.
It's like a story that we tell ourselves, right? It starts with a story that we tell, that our mind is telling ourselves. That's why meditation helps so much, because it clears that noise. So I have this voice, it's telling me something, and then I feed it even more and even more, and it becomes this big thing. Yeah.
A dragon.
Crazy. And you said something before about the memory of the anxiety.
Right.
And I remember thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to have this forever. It's like a memory. So I had like a trigger from my anxiety, being afraid of getting anxiety. So I'd get anxiety over being afraid of getting anxiety, right?
Which
so
is the worst kind of anxiety.
A repeat. I'm like, this is never going to go away. And I remember having that thought and cut to where I am now, where it's like, I don't even remember it being there. My body doesn't even know.
Doesn't remember the trauma.
Nothing. I cleared it from my system and it's never going to come back. It just won't. It's just how it works. I've been clear of this for God knows how many years, 15 years.
At what point do you make the distinction between anxiety being a chemical imbalance that could be treated with medicine or something that is a deep kind of layer? Because my critic towards the Eastern tradition, as you see, I'm a very open individual and I study both ways. I study both Western philosophies. I study Eastern philosophies and traditions. I go into the manual books and the review books and read from both sides. What I'm a bit of a critic of Eastern traditions and Eastern kind of healing mechanisms for anxiety is that they don't admit, not all of them, but some of them, they don't admit or they don't take notice. Admit sounds a bit more harsh. They don't take notice that some anxiety and depression stuff are literally a chemical imbalance between your serotonin and dopamine levels. And for lots of people, SSRIs are a wonderful, extremely great tool that immediately fixes you can still be stressed, you can still feel the thing, but you're not going to get that, crippling anxiety or crippling depression. I'm not saying you should only use SSRIs I always say, use SSRIs and combine them with CBT or therapy or meditation, yoga, whatever, sports. But it seems like Eastern philosophy is that doesn't think that way of like a chemical imbalance. What do you say about that?
Well, I don't know enough about medicine. I just know what I know. I don't even know that medicine that you mentioned.
SSRI, like antidepressants.
Oh, okay. See,
it's like,
I don't even know. So yeah, any
like
antidepressants.
Zoloft or
So I've had many clients come to me that were on the medications, on different medications, and then they slowly wean off of it as they do the inner work. So it's not like I'm against it. I mean, medicine's there for a reason. I think we abuse it. People abuse medicine. But I do think that it's not this or that. Because even if there's a chemical imbalance, the work that I do, we bring it back to balance.
The chemical itself, you feel, yeah.
Yes. And I think, and what I've heard in conversations with doctors or scientists, I've seen that there is proof of that as well. So our mind can shift from that. And things like ice baths, that brings up your dopamine levels, right?
Immediately.
Right. It's like great for people who suffer from stress. So it's a good combination. There is a way to treat it without medicine, but the person has to believe it and really want it and like dive right in. I don't even take Advil.
Really?
I don't have relationship with medicine. So I don't know that. But I'm kind of living proof that you could do it without the medicine too.
How's your diet like?
I've been vegetarian since I'm 9.
Okay.
But even then,
with
I'm
fish
not extreme. I eat fish.
Sushi
so not
as
like
well?
Presbyterian. No, I say pescatarian, whatever. I don't give it labels. I just eat what feels right to me. Right. I just don't know meat, so I don't eat meat. I just don't know it. My mom was vegetarian for her own personal reasons, and we just kind of grew up without meat. Now, today, I listen to my body. So I do drink broth, for example, without chewing meat. I eat fish. I think fatty foods have been really good for me.
Like avocado, salmon,
walnuts,
almonds.
Warm food, like cooked vegetables. I just know what's best for me. I believe in balance. And I also believe in when you feel healthy inside, it affects the way you digest the food.
Right.
Right. So if I'm eating something and I feel guilty and stressed about it, my body's going to hold on to it.
That is, by the way, scientifically proved by now.
Really?
Yes.
I always love hearing that.
Yes.
I go on like morning shows and they bring me to talk about a certain subject from my perspective, the emotional, and they always bring like a doctor or a psychologist. And then I talk to them or I hear what they say about it. And I'm like, oh my God, this stuff has proof, because I've been doing this for years. I've been treating people for years. My proof is my clients. Like I just see it. I see it with my own eyes. I see the shift. I
love it.
I see their, like their tumors becoming smaller as the sessions go on, or, women with fibro, which is fibromyalgia, the pain in the muscles. They're not having as much pain. It's gone down by like 60-70% because of the sessions. Like these kinds of things, I'm seeing it, but now there's also proof behind it. So that's super cool.
So do you drink alcohol?
I drink wine.
Red
wine mostly.
Try. Daily or like?
No. I'm not. No, not daily. When I want.
Right.
I'm very mindful about things. Like I feel good with my body, so I treat it well. And if it feels like having wine, I don't drink or eat from emotion.
Right.
That's where it becomes dangerous. When we're trying to fill our body up to feel good. So let me just.
So sweets. What about sweets?
I love sweets. I love sweets, but not too much. And I'm not big on sugar. I don't add sugar to anything. I don't even have sugar at home. I'm not extreme.
Got it.
I'm not extreme. The work that I do, because a lot of people ask me about my nutrition, because I'm very healthy. I'm a healthy person. And I tell them my nutrition started from my soul, from my emotions. I treated my inside.
Right.
So I'm kinder to my body. So I'm not going to and for me personally, being extreme in something causes me imbalance. So like being completely this way, like no sugar, no gluten, no. For me, that doesn't feel good. Like I don't like extreme. I like balance. So then it doesn't work on me and my body.
What's your take about, because, when you look, you're a holistic individual. You're a holistic teacher. When you see something, when you engaged with a certain issue or problem, I'm sure just based on hearing you talk right now, you don't only focus on one element. So it's not only it's not only your daily routines. It's not only your diet. It's like the way you think. There's like so much things involved. And you can't help it, but like us as social creatures, like relationships are like a big part of this whole thing, So like you see, it's not, people say like you need to choose who you spend time with, like extra carefully, and we're seeing, some people, and it could be, with your friends, it could be romantic partners. There's a wide range of relationship types. I personally feel like for my mental health, that has been such a key improvement to basically kind of filter out and choose the right people who I give this energy in my time with. I do think that, just like romantically speaking, periods when I'm a bit more promiscuous, just by the nature of things, I do feel like my energy is being kind of spread, you know, and then I feel that kind of like emptiness. And when I'm more like committed to one person, I do feel that it's like a ping pong of like energy. I give, I get.
If
And
it's a healthy relationship.
If it's a healthy relationship, obviously, if it's a healthy one. What's your take on that? Like on this whole thing, like this relationship diet thing, you know?
So it's interesting because the people around us, sometimes we can't choose it, right? So you're working in an office and this is your boss and this is your... So I tell a lot of people, because this is where I'm at. So what you do is when you're doing the inner work and strengthening, yes, you kind of like, you know, arm's length from those kinds of people. So there are friends that are maybe affecting you negatively or their energy. So, you know, you step away from it quietly. But when you're in your power, you can be around anybody, right? I don't really give my energy out. I have like a shield around me. I am around people. I do retreats, 2-3 retreats a month. I do workshops. I do festivals, talks, whatever it is. I'm around people all the freaking time.
Right.
I never feel depleted.
Love this.
First of all, I take care of myself. Second of all, I have a shield. I have a shield around me, a protective shield. But when you're doing the inner work, I couldn't have been in that environment. So that's taking friends and whatever. In relationship, yes, you know, when you are physical with another human being, it's very sacred. It's very sacred because there's an energy. And my energy is very healthy, right? My energy, I've done a lot of work on this energy. And I'm talking about physically, being physical in a romantic partner. That doesn't go to anybody. I don't want to share, because what happens is you don't really have a protective shield, right? It's like, you're receiving this energy from this person because you're very vulnerable. You're very open. So I'm very selective about that. It's really important because I do get affected by that. I have to, like, if somebody has a negative energy and I soaked it in like years ago or whatever, I need to cleanse myself from that, you know, personally, because the more we clean ourselves, the more we see, the more we feel things emotionally, physically. Like I can take something and it will give me a headache, like sugar or whatever, where somebody else is immune to it because they're doing it all the time. Or I can drink a glass of wine and I'm like, woo, where someone else is immune to it because I'm feeling more. So it's the same physically, emotionally, right? In every aspect, I see more. You start seeing things that are beyond your eyes.
This is so interesting. So you're saying you just, in the last minute or so, you were talking about two things that seem contradicting, but they're actually well aligned.
Very contradicting.
No, I tell you why. Because on one hand, you're like, I can be wherever I want because I have a shield.
Yeah.
And then, but the other thing you just said right now is, because you have this inner work done, you're actually more sensitive to things that other people are not. So it's like this contradiction. I have a shield, but I'm also very sensitive. How?
But the shield is because I'm very sensitive to people. So I need that shield. I need it around me. I'm not like, things just don't pass over me, like energies, because I remember energies. I meet a lot of people. I don't remember names. I remember their face, their aura, and their energy.
Do you actually see an aura?
My
mom actually sees an aura. My mom, by the way, is a very spiritual person.
Oh, I love that.
She's very spiritual.
Oh, like you must be a special person.
She's a lighthouse in this world. She's unbelievable. Every person, you need to meet her. Every person,
I want to.
Every person that sees her, like she's.
I feel that. You know? Yeah. I mean, I won't get into like the more spirit world, but auras and energy because, you know, I can go further. As much as I'm like grounded, I'm also very, you know, I studied the psychic self and all that stuff too.
Right.
So, you know, I'm a priestess, I'm this, that, right? But just getting into auras, that's energy, so people can understand that. And yes, I do see auras and it's super cool.
I'll tell you a funny story, you know, and we have about 5 minutes left, but this is a very funny story. So we grew up in a very spiritual house, and my dad is not necessarily spiritual in the way he talks, but trust me, he's very spiritual in the way he behaves. And my mom always, everything. She's we learned about spirituality from a very young age, and it came to a point where there's this funny thing, till this day, where if like my brother I have two younger sweet brothers, and if they they try to hit me, not really hit me, but like,
my God,
no, not hit me like physically, like as a joke, but like act like they're hitting me, like act like they're hitting me.
What does she say?
As a joke, like they're doing like this and this,
and
they're like, you're crazy, you're hitting his aura. You're touching his aura, and it's like and we joke about it because like he's like a meter away from me, but he's like, you're touching him. You're touching, like there's there's something about him that you don't see, but it's right around his body.
This is the house you grew up in.
This is the house I grew up in. So like, and it was a wonderful house to grow up in, because you're just
exposed to
you're exposed, and then like when there's a problem. Like a certain issue happening, you understand that it's not only this issue. It's just like there's an underlying tone.
Yes, that there's something beyond.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to like the beginning, where
Right.
we live in such a chaotic world right now. But when you know that there's something beyond, you're not going to suffer or get sucked into it. Get sucked into that dark space. When you know, and you can see beyond it. You can see the higher picture of things.
I want to ask, before we end this, there's several questions that I want to ask you. If you had to give one tip to people who's like suffering from anxiety or depression, what would be that tip?
To wake up every morning and place your hands in the middle of your chest and take a deep inhale and feel your chest expand. And as you exhale, make the sound, and feel how every little piece of anxiety or stress is getting cleared from your system so that you can start your day.
What books have influenced you throughout your journey?
The 4 Agreements was a great one in the beginning. That was a really nice one. I had like cards, and that was just not take everything personally, and great book. The Secret was a nice one.
Law of Attraction.
Yeah, which was very cool. The Power of Now. Like all these things that were very like grounding, like teaching me like to be in the present. Yeah, those were the books from the beginning. Now I have like weird books. Like
you exercise a lot, right?
Yeah.
Every day you do something?
I do functional training. I do Pilates. I run. Yoga and meditation is just like part of my everyday. I don't go to yoga classes. I just I teach it, and then I move my body.
Right. Which is how it was designed to be like.
Yeah.
If you
it's a tool.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
And you have kids, right?
I have a daughter.
One daughter. And are you working with her on mindfulness and stuff?
She's 14. I think when she was younger, she was part of it. Now it's just like, I'm not cool. I'm just not cool. Which I am. I'm cool, but like
you will become cooler again later on.
But she is connected, and what I love is that she knows, even if she's a teenager, which I love that she's a teenager, right? She's not, but she knows that there's something beyond. She has belief. She has belief in something, and I think that's what will balance her in her life. Through difficulties, like knowing that there's something beyond.
I know I don't know, but I guess you're not a political person, right?
No.
You're not. But you say elections is coming up.
Yeah.
And there's a massive amount of stress around that. And you see lots of conflicts between people from different parties. Even in our own country, you see that, right? Yeah. What kind of tip would you give those type of people? Like what I'm trying to ask here is, how do you shield yourself in a way from this external political landscape, both here in Israel in terms of the war and internally in Israel between the different opinions, and also in the U.S., which is becoming quite a shitstorm recently. I'm
going to say something that's not really popular. I think what happens is it's like a humanity kind of thing, become like children, and it's like my side, this side, let's take sides, and who's going to win, right? I find that the people that do the inner work are not like really invested in that too much.
Interesting.
You know, like they're like, okay, this exists. Yes. I have my opinions about things, but it's not like you win, I win. It's a war, ego, right? I think that's a very childish way to look at things. I think politicians are very childish. I mean, I do. I think there's a lot of ego there and a lot of like, my land, your land. If you really look at it from like a higher perspective, it's silly. It is the way of the world right now, and I do accept it and see it. But, you know, when you kind of just look at it from the, like zoom out, you see that it's just a big board game.
Is there kind of like a quote or a mantra that you kind of live by or that helps you through challenges?
I love that. I came up with like my own little mantra that when I was going through a hard time, that were like 4 words about myself that I didn't necessarily believe at the time, but I knew existed. That I still say them because it's become like my own mantra. So I say that I am powerful, I'm wise, and I'm a goddess. And those are things I always kind of repeat when I go through a difficult time. Wise because I was always considered clueless, because my ways of thinking were different. You know, they were in textbook. Powerful because, you know, inner power. And a goddess, that's me connected to my feminine energy. Me connected to the softer part of life, the quieter part of life, the nurture.
What's your take on like this this balance between male and females nowadays, where you see well, I'm not just throwing out slogans here. I mean, the statistics are quite apparent that, you know, the traditional male and female relationship is not as balanced. I mean, you see the divorce rates are increasing every single year.
Yeah. I mean, yes. I don't see it male, female. I see masculine energy and feminine energy.
Right.
What has happened through the years, women have been going into the masculine energy.
And men into the feminine?
Well, it starts with the women, right? So, and that caused an imbalance because the women were in the masculine, the men were going into the feminine. I help women come back into the feminine energy, which is in the being, into the intuition. It's not about equality. We're not the same. You know, males and females, we're not the same. Yes. Do I believe we should be paid the same? Yes. Should we be given equal opportunity to things? Yes. But women don't need to become the man. And a lot of those women suffer because they're not aligned with who they are. Right. So it's like they go through a lot of, and they're not happy in their marriage.
So you think it starts with the women?
Yes. I think women have a lot of power over and responsibility over what's going on in the world.
This is interesting. I'm going to throw out a stat. Female and male were about between 50 to 60% divorce rates. Woman to woman, lesbian couples are at 77 divorce rates, and men to men are only between 20 to 30%.
Well, that makes sense.
So I'm not
the women to women. It's interesting. I didn't know women to women was
that
higher.
Unbelievable. Think about it. You know.
Well, I can tell.
And that doesn't take the blame off men, obviously.
I'll tell you why it makes sense. Because men are more simple than women. You know, they think more black and white. You know, like their organs very straight.
Right.
And they see the black and the white. So it's very simple. You know, think of like a sexual relationship between a man and a man. You know, they have their sex. They don't need to cuddle. They don't need any of the, you know, it's like very simple, very easy. So I get how that could work. Women, we're a lot more complicated, like our organs, you know? We have this more like our wombs. We see the whole picture. We discuss it. I get along with my girlfriends. I don't know why the divorce rate would be high, but I wouldn't want to marry them. Like, I don't know if I would want to be in a relationship with them because it would be very complicated. Because we're very complicated. A man in his divine masculine energy balances me. You know what I mean? A woman in her feminine, I would be like, what? What's happening here? One of us would have to take a role of the masculine. So that I don't see that working as much.
And you're married, right? You mentioned
No, I'm not married.
Okay.
I was married. I was married for 10 years. I've been divorced 7 years.
Got it.
That was part of my journey. That was
Right.
part of my growth and expansion. Because of this marriage, I was able to be in the role I am today in this world. Like,
Amazing.
I see it as a gift.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Maya, thank you so much for taking
Thank
the time.
you.
You're amazing. You brought so much value. Where can people kind of check you out? Instagram?
You can look me up on Instagram, Maya Kramer. You can just Google my name. I have a website. I have YouTube videos, again, Maya Kramer, with meditations and yoga postures and things to calm the nervous system. So yeah.
Love it. Maya, thank you so much.
Thank you.